right, Blue Collar Sports Talk fans, we're inching ever so closer to the start of college and NFL football season. So we're going to give you some Husker news. Of course we are. We'll give you some NFL news. And we'll have our final thoughts. In our first clip, you'll hear Coach Matt Rule talk about players not at the first practice.
Just a quick couple statements just to help you guys out. First of all, let me say, that was a lot of fun to be out there. It's good to be back out there. I'm just trying to think of the guys. Brody Tagaloa. Unfortunately, Brody was in a traffic incident, a car accident, a single car accident. Maybe about a couple weeks ago. He's home in California with his family, recuperating. I FaceTimed him last night, and so he's had a cut to his face, had to have surgery on his knee. We expect him to miss the year, unfortunately. Brody was coming along great, but he's got a bright future, and good things will happen for Brody. So he's with us. He's just home with his family, recuperating post the accident. Jacob Hood, Jacob's just dealing with some chronic ankle stuff. So he's kind of a little bit more in just sort of rehab mode right now. That's why he wasn't there last night. He was meeting with the doctors. Miles Farmer. Miles was suspended to end the summer by us, just for simple things, nothing major, just sort of some of our standards, and was not a member of the 120. So we'll wait and see how that all plays out. And who was it? And then, Josh Fleeks reported yesterday and was significantly over his weight, so he was sent home to make his weight. So we'll wait and see how Josh does.
Coach Rule discusses using former coach Tom Osborne practice plans and what he sees with the young players and the veteran players.
As I told the young guys at the end, a lot of places in the country, the freshmen showed up and they got 5 reps in practice today, but our guys all got 40. So it's just kind of what Coach Osborne told me, make sure they all get reps. And it's a little bit of a strain on, the coaches and the staff because, you're having to be out there for a little bit longer, but, it's fun. And it's good to see them, their personalities, right? You see Chubba now goes from being kind of one of the young guys. Now Chubba's the vet out there leading that third offense. And you see guys, you see the guys as freshmen sort of start to, who's the leader, who's got some juice to them. So it's really good to see. I got to tell you, I'm really happy with the young group we have, the freshman group. They are fast. I mean, they are really, really fast. Their movement skills, Ed and I were talking out there, our special teams, it's going to be a battle to get on those special teams because we have a lot of guys who can really run and move that want to play.
Coach Rule goes over his goal for having the team stay in the dorms for 2 weeks.
Well, I want our whole team to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like they're not allowed to leave campus without permission. Like we told them, don't tell me your dog needs walked or like you're here. So I think for me, it's we just have to get comfortable with new things. But more importantly, we're trying to build brotherhood, right? And so we're trying to build a sense of common purpose by getting to know each other. So having those guys over there, Gus and his people put a bunch of board games and cards, hoping that they'll maybe get off their phone and talk to each other. And then, we don't just play for ourselves. We don't just play for the football team. We play for the University of Nebraska and the state of Nebraska. And so returning to the heart of campus to me is really important. So I think it's that. And so it kind of divides camp up, right? You're in the dorms for 2 weeks. Then you have a week of kind of being at home coming in. Then school starts, and then we have 10 days before the first game. So sort of this 2-week grind. And, I thought the dorms would be a little bit harder. They're pretty nice.
Coach Rule talks about Miles Farmer being suspended.
I don't know. It's just kind of day by day, like I said, I love Miles. He's a competitive kid. It's so hard when you have a new coach, right? And they have different standards than you're used to. So I get that, right? We've been patient with a lot of guys, We'll see what happens with Miles, right? We'll see what happens. And, we'll see, like I said, the ball's in his court. I mean, would love him to be here, but, whatever he wants to do, I respect him as a man. So whatever he decides, I understand.
Coach Rule has a message about the younger players and learning the playbook.
Yeah, I think that's the one distinguishing really good characteristic. I mean, they're all, like I said, they're all, they're getting a lot of reps and they're probably not used to it. So there's a lot of guys kind of trying to catch their breath. I think they're in pretty good shape. They're pretty knowledgeable. The challenge to them, all young players want to play. the number one thing that keeps young players from playing is their knowledge of the playbook. It slows them down, right? So I begged them at the end of practice, like, this is not my phone, but I was like, this will not help you play. Like, every minute you spend on this phone or playing the game does not help you play. Like, study your playbook. So that's the hardest thing. Like, very few guys will actually do it. Just is what it is, right? Like, so, but the ones who do, there'll be a couple of freshmen that'll really buy into it, and they'll study it, and they'll be on a mission to play, and they'll help us, because the young players, we're going to win with the older players, but the young players can help us.
Coach Rule, how did you feel on your first day of practice?
Yeah, I was really calm and peaceful today. Like, I really felt a sense of, like, just calm. Like, for my, it's just for my day one of coaching a team in fall camps, my fourth time being a head coach and having to be day one. These guys are just way further along than, they just understand what we're asking them to do. And the staff has done a great job. Like, Susan's worked every day this summer to get them. And Garrett McGuire didn't go on vacation. He stayed every day this summer. So, like, they're just the team's so much further along in terms of understanding what we're asking, that it just made me, I'm not out there having to be a maniac making sure every drill's like, they understand where it's supposed to be. So I have to give a lot of credit to the players. I mean, they really worked this summer. And I'll say one thing, I think Billy spoke today, Billy Kemp. Like, he's an edgy, tough, feisty dude. Like, someone wants to jump me and I see Billy, I'm saying, hey, Billy, will you help me out? Like, he's a guy I'm taking into a dark alley with me. But I watch him out there with the players in the summer, and I watch him coach those guys he's always pulling a guy over and saying, hey, let me talk. So our young players are pretty much further along because of the culture of our older players here. And, I really appreciate that.
This last clip from Coach Rule is about winning.
All we're trying to do is earn the right to walk into Minnesota with confidence. That's all we're trying to earn it. Like, one thing about being in Nebraska, it's a great place, but, like, we're all given a lot. Like, people care about us. Like, Trev gives us all this stuff. Like, we have scholarships. Some guys have NIL stuff. We get a lot of stuff, but they don't give you wins. You've got to earn wins. They don't give you wins. That you have to earn wins. And so I like the way that they have, like, a sense of, like, hey, let's get this done. And, let's just talk about today. So I was pleased. I had a lot of fun out there with them today. I really did.
All right, everybody. Blue Collar Sports Talk fans, that was Matt Rule there. We heard some stuff from him. And Daryl here.
James, morning. Yeah. I love hearing that stuff from Matt Rule and stuff that I'm reading. I mean, as Nebraska fans, we've got to be excited. Granted, we haven't seen nothing on the field yet, but there's actual changes. It's not, well, we're doing this, we're trying that, we're trying to make up from the last regime and the last regime of that regime. They're actually doing things. Just listen to the stuff he's doing and what he's trying. And you have a fifth year junior, a 6-year senior that he said, and the wide receiver, the one that came in overweight, played for him at Baylor. So they have a relationship. And he's like, no, dude, you're not on the roster till you got to get there.
I enjoy hearing that he's talking to Tom Osborne to hear about the tradition and try to some things that Tom Osborne did, because it was tried and true for however many years Tom Osborne did it. So I enjoyed hearing that. I also enjoyed hearing him say, whoever buys into the system, I don't care if you're a freshman or whatnot, if you buy into the system, you know the playbook and you know what's going on, man, you're going to play.
Yes. Finally, play people that know the play over uber talented. Because as long as a guy's in the right spot to make the play, things can happen. But when you have an uber talent, and we've seen it how many times the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've seen, especially on the defensive side, 2 corners and one guy's wide open. They're like, oh, it's a miscommunication. Oh, Chandler's, his defense so complicated. It's the terminology. It's miscommunication. Well, then obviously they don't know the book.
Yeah.
Or something. So, yeah, please play the guys that know where they're supposed to be at on the field. It makes everything easier when the quarterback, the defense, the linebacker looks up and they're in the right spot at the right time.
And then briefly, Miles Farmer, I found it interesting. Everything that Coach Rule said is like, it's in his court, man. We've told him what we need, and it's in his court. And now, the very next day, Miles Farmer decided to transfer.
Yeah. And obviously, we have no idea. They haven't really leaked exactly what he did, or if they have, I haven't seen it. If it's in his court, it tells me it's something like making meetings on time or practices on time or going to the weight room, or it's getting his tutoring, schooling. I know they're not in his class yet, but I'm sure there's stuff they got to get going or whatever, and maybe he's slacking on that. It doesn't sound like it's a drug failed test, because then it's really not in his court, right? Because he has to go through steps. So to me, if it's in his court to get back on the field, it's minor things of paying attention to detail. And again, 5-year junior, has some, great player for Nebraska. We love him, but if you're not going to buy in, we don't need a cancer on the team. Go ahead and jump in the portal.
Who knows what it is? I'm not really sure. I just know that he really hasn't been with the team since he had that DUI. What was it, November?
Yeah.
So again, we're not really sure what's going on, but I found it interesting that the day after Coach Rule came out in a press conference and said, man, the ball's in his court. I respect whatever decision he made. And maybe when Coach Rule made that, he already knew that he was going to transfer.
Yeah.
You just don't know. First game, Husker football in Minnesota, August 31st. So the countdown has begun. Prior to that, Memorial Stadium will be used for volleyball day. That's the 30th. And then before that, they have the red-white game August 19th. And then we do our little tournament to start the season. I think we have Utah coming to town and a few other schools, or I should say Utah State. So
I want to go back and touch on that football.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
One of the things that I don't know if you guys, some people haven't seen or noticed, when he talks about Osborne saying, make sure the young guys get their reps. Excuse me. One of the things he's doing, something that's never been done in Nebraska, I don't know any other schools that do it. They might, when he's talking about doing the 2 separate practices. So he has the 60 guys. There's 120 guys on the team roster. 60 with the most experience gets the first set of practice. Then there's a break in between, probably for the coaches, get them something to drink, a little snack. Then he holds the 60 youngest players, the most inexperienced, and they get their own practice. So he said the best part about it, normal in a practice, freshmen, sophomores get 5 to maybe 10 reps max. They're getting a full slate of a practice, the full 2-hour coaching from the coaches that the starters get. To me, that is absolutely huge. When you have a freshman that's getting, I'll just say a freshman, it's easy, 4 or 5 reps at a time, like, oh, he's showing these flashes. Okay, well, we're not quite sure. But when you're seeing it for 40 plays, 35, 40 plays, Purdy getting a throw, 35, 40 plays, when it becomes time to scrimmage and you have your first string gets a second string, you have a lot of those young guys on there, they're going to be more than ready. That first team might get all they can handle with those second string because like, oh my gosh, these guys are in. Big thing with those young people, it's always in the wrong spot, right? Learning the playbook, being in the right spot, right time. I love that thought process. I never even thought about it. I didn't know what, look how long those coaches have to be there now. 2 separate full practices, right? They're willing to do it, 1, to win games. That's what it comes down to. Like you said, first game is Minnesota. They've won, 4 of the last 5 or 5 of the last 6, something like that, like 4 or 5 in a row now. Close games, most of them. They're favored by 7. I love that they're favored by 7. I hope it stays at that all the way to game time. It's at Minnesota. Let's have a nice prepared team, and I love how we're starting it already.
Okay, let's go back 30, 40 years. 30, 40 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when they stopped it, but we had a freshman team, and you had freshman coaches, and all those guys got a lot of practice time, and they had their own games, and they were ready to step in.
Yeah.
So not saying that this is similar to that, but this is as close as possible to having your own JV squad or freshman team and making sure they get those reps because they are going to be needed.
Yeah, and I think the big thing when Osborne coached, there wasn't as limited as practices. You had more practices. People, they weren't all about injuries and heads and all that. Now the school, the NCAA has these practices on limits and time and exposure. So you kind of got to do it a different way. And I think it's great the way they're doing it. But yeah, Osborne set the table because like you said, they say the pipeline or whatever, next man up. Nebraska truly was the next man up through those late 80s, early 90s where you wouldn't even notice a guy was out.
There was no drop-off.
No, yeah. You're like, good grief, this guy could start for any other team.
There was no drop-off at all. From first, and this is crazy to say, But there was a time when we had 5 or 6 running backs, and you didn't know, oh, that's not the starter?
Right.
He just cracked off a 60-yard gallop all the way down to the...
Yes. If you didn't look at the number, you just watched. Yeah, it seemed like every guy that walked in, 7, 8 yards. So we go back to our talk last week talking about running backs and Smith, anyone can run behind that offensive line. So do we take away from Rozier and Green and Phillips and all them because the O-line was that good? I think the running back was also equally that good.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to try to remember to leave a link in the description for the volleyball, switching back to volleyball. They listed all of the televised games, and there is quite a list. Some of them are on Big Ten Plus. If you happen to spend the money for Big Ten Plus, I think it's highly worth it just for volleyball and all the other sports that don't get televised on the major networks.
It is nice. They do have a lot of games televised this year on regular TV.
They do. There are a lot. Between Fox and even our local Nebraska Public Media, Channel 12, whatever you want to call that, and the Big Ten Network. The Big Ten Network and Fox Sports are carrying quite a few. Moving on. So
we actually have NFL tonight.
We do. I'm excited.
Yeah. A lot of you guys, it did me. The end of July comes, so I'm all excited about, whenever we get into fall temps. I don't know what this walking through water we're doing these last few days, but it's August. So, yeah, it's going to be full-fledged football. And Hall of Fame tonight, Hall of Fame game tonight. You got Jets versus the Browns. And I'm not being the Debbie Downer, but I'm 99% sure that you will not see Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers tonight take a snap.
I'm wondering more if the Browns do want to have at least 3 plays with some of their main guys. Yeah. I would think the Browns might be more likely. The Jets, you just don't know. You go back and forth. In my mind, you go back and forth. Is it worth the risk?
Right.
Do you go? I mean, this isn't practice. Do you go full speed? Who knows? But it's part of the Hall of Fame hoopla this whole week. You're going to have inductees into the NFL Hall of Fame. It's tonight, NBC, 7:00. And I always chuckle. Preseason games have lines.
I didn't see one on this one yet. I think it's still...
Jets are 2.
Oh, 2.
Jets are favored by 2, and the overs are set at 33.5.
33?
Yeah.
I guess that's 16, 17. So, yeah.
Yeah, 33.5.
That's about right.
It's in Canton, Ohio. It's in that small little stadium there. Couldn't even tell you how many it holds. It's
not many.
Right. It's not very many.
Yeah. If you get tickets to that, I'm not saying it's like the Super Bowl because, and we talked earlier, is the crappy part is the starters don't play these games anymore. It used to be the starters had at least a series, for the fans. Now this game is for the fans. It's right at the Hall of Fame. They paid a lot of money for those tickets. They want to see these guys play. And I'm willing to bet that Rodgers don't even have his uniform on. I think he sits in street clothes right next to 7, 8 other starters that cheer on the next guys. And I just think it's an injustice to the fans that pay to go see that game and, be there.
For some reason, I feel that the Jets want to have a little bit of Aaron Rodgers time, prime time, first game. They trot him out for maybe one play. That's just a guess on my part. That's just it.
Then you just sub him out? Like it's a 3-yard run or a 5-yard pass, and then he runs off the field?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Hey, Aaron Rodgers play. There's his first snap for the Jets.
Who
knows, though?
Yeah. If I'm the coach or owner, I'm secretly calling. I'm going over there like, hey, what do you think if we play our starters 1 series each, we don't blitz, let's just play a little weak zone, let them look good, let them drive right down the field, get a score, each of us, and don't pull our starters.
No. I don't see that happening.
Let's script it out. Let it do the fans just, work on a handful of 15 plays and then then pull the guys out and then say, okay, now it's, sneak in what you want to sneak in. Let's see what these guys got. So.
Who knows? Who knows what goes on behind the scenes?
Yeah. But I'm excited also. NFL coming up tonight. even if it is the Week Hall of Fame game. And then Saturday, or there's like a couple games on Friday, full slate on Saturday, and then 2 more games on Sunday. I'm sorry, that's all next week. My apologies, everyone. I'm ahead of myself. This is the only game this week.
James is so excited that he can't wait for this to happen.
I'm starting it now, even though the league says no, we're not. So next week, we'll start all the other teams playing. Apologize for getting you all excited like that. So, yeah, next week we'll start the regular season, regular preseason.
So James and I, when we were trying to set up what we wanted to talk about this show, we were thinking about talking about the Pac-12 stuff.
Yeah.
And the college conferences. And I was really shocked that the Pac-12 didn't go after a major network, that they're working with Apple for a streaming. And I don't know if that helped them or hurt them. I shouldn't say I don't know. In my mind, I feel that didn't help them at all.
No, well, I know a lot of people, we talk, I don't mind those later games. They're West Coast teams, so they're obviously a few hours behind us, couple hours behind us. So when they're starting at 9 o'clock, they're really starting at 7, normal kickoff time for that part of the country. And for whatever reason, now TV thinks, the viewership's not there, it's just on the West Coast or blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of us that work that shift that when we get off of work, we can get home and watch at least the second half, if not the fourth quarter.
Right. I love West Coast games for that reason.
Yeah. And I think there's an audience for them, but I'll tell you what, I'm not getting Apple TV to do it.
Okay. So I understand why people are leaving conferences. Conferences have been in a constant state of flux since they started. And it's all about money. I mean, think way back when Oklahoma and Texas were in, or not Oklahoma, but Texas was in a Southwestern conference before SEC. Now Texas is going back to the SEC. And again, it's all about money.
Fact.
I looked at the amount of money. Now, this is all of NCAA. What revenue of the NCAA from television broadcast payments and licensing rights. So in 2012, they were paid over $666 million. So fast forward to 2022, $870 million. Right? So you understand why these schools are trying to jockey position for a better deal and a better conference. And honestly, I think the Pac-12 is going to die.
Yeah, so we talked, I think it was right after the Oregon, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Oregon yet. We'll get to them in a minute. When UCLA and USC came, then the Pac-12 was like, it's no big deal. We're going to be looked to grabbing big teams. And when I heard Oklahoma, Texas going to SEC, my money was on the Big 12 falling apart. Everyone would scrounge and grab them. Hats off to the Big 12. They said, whoa. We're going to fight to keep this conference alive. And they have. They're making the moves. I'm obviously went and out, got Colorado. Not a huge pick, but they're trying to make plays. And you're right. It looks like the Pac-12 with, I'm not in the room, but it looks to me like you're saying, it looks like mediocre effort. You don't try to go for a big TV rights. The teams these days, when you recruit kids, it's, hey, look what you're going to be on TV. SEC, Big Ten, you're going to be on TV. Huge recruiting tool, and the Pac-12, I think, is swinging and missing. So, yeah, I totally agree. The rumors now, the Big Ten's already talking of Oregon and Washington, right? So the biggest thing now for this to happen right now, for you guys that don't know, Pac-12's TV, this is the last season for their TV contract. So it's smart for all the teams to leave first of next year because they don't have to pay anything. They don't have any revenue sharing that they have to give back.
Right.
So Colorado's in the perfect spot leaving. They're already ahead of the boat. So if the Big Ten gets Washington and Oregon right away, they'll finish out this season and they'll be with us next year that quick.
So the Pac-12's current 12-year agreement with Fox and ESPN stopping after this year, and its current value is $250 million. So that's a lot of money, right? But that's still not what the Big 12 has.
Right.
They just reached a deal with ESPN and Fox Sports on a 6-year agreement worth over $2 billion. That's $380 million a year. So you put that in perspective, the Pac-12's last agreement was $250 a year million.
Mm-hmm.
Big 12's $380 million per year. And we haven't heard what the rights with Apple are. We just heard that they're looking at it. So who knows what the numbers are?
Yep.
And then you factor in all the jockeying. So some of the West Coast schools, so we're bringing on USC and UCLA. They don't want any more West Coast teams in the Big Ten. They don't want any more people to recruit where they're recruiting other than what is happening. So that kind of kicks out Oregon. That kind of kicks out Washington. Some people think, maybe we'll look at Virginia and North Carolina to go east to get new recruiting grounds. But no one knows. It's all guessing right now.
Oh, and it's all feelers. They got to find a team that wants, hey, are you willing? Are you looking? Are you thinking? I read this morning, Florida State's looking to leave the ACC because they're not getting enough TV revenue themselves. That'd be really interesting if maybe they can get them to jump on board with the Big Ten. I think they're more of a Big 12 fit. Just personally, I think the Big 12 would be great to grab them. But especially with Oklahoma, Texas leaving the Big 12, I mean, isn't the door wide open? You would naturally think, okay, hey, OK State, K-State, it's your turn. Step up. Baylor, it's your turn. Step up to take over the Big 12 is what I'm talking about, right? Those two guys are always the two up there winning it, being in the game all the time. I mean, it opens a big door. Colorado, I think I don't know much about Dion as far as how he's going to recruit. Colorado coming over. I've seen first couple seasons. I don't think they do great. But does he finally get recruiting in the Big 12 and get Big 12 players and start winning in that league? We'll have to wait and see, obviously, but
just in television rights alone, that allowed them to pay Dion his salary now.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And I'd see the Big Ten. I mean, he's talking, trying to expand. I know they wanted 20 teams. They were originally 16. So.
Yeah, we're headed in that super conference era.
Yep. And it goes back to the age-old question. Does Notre Dame finally jump on board? So somewhere, not Big Ten, SEC, ACC. They already play basketball in the ACC. Do they join? They go, they're all in the full, because I know that was a Big Ten thing.
Right.
We don't want you if you're not bringing basketball.
And in that conversation, they lumped in Stanford with that Notre Dame conversation. If we can get both, great. If not, we don't know. So again, everybody's trying to position themselves for the biggest slice of that money pie.
Yep.
And it's crazy. So currently right now, ESPN has the college football playoff. They have SEC exclusively through 24. They have the Big Ten, which ends in 23. ESPN also has ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12, and those end respectively in 25 and 24. They also have AAC, Sunbelt, Mountain West, the MAC, and the CUSA ends in 23. CBS was exclusively SEC. That ends in 23.
Yep.
The Big Ten should start in 24. I've heard possibly there's some still tweaks to that. CBS also has some rights to the CUSA, MAC, and Mountain West. And then Fox reportedly is extending a new deal with Big Ten. Big 12 ends in 25. Pac-12 ends in 24 with Fox. And then NBC. NBC was the home of Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, right? Yeah.
And that ends in 25.
Yep.
And then NBC is going to start with Big 10 in 24. So they didn't really care if they lost Notre Dame because they already had some other stuff in play. But again, it's all about money.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if NBC is going to try to get in there more because, like you said, they really don't have a whole lot of games on their slate. They pick and choose. They have a few minor games during the year, besides the Notre Dame games I'm talking about. I'm wondering if they jump on why didn't the Pac-12 talk to NBC and try to work out a deal? But, I have no idea. Maybe they did. But my only thing with Fox and the Big Ten, and it's my thing with Fox all along. I have no problem with Fox as far as station people, whoever, but their cameras, it still looks like it's the 90s when I watch NFL games, when I watch their TV shows, football games. I'm always like, if you watch, okay, when the season starts, turn to the game on Fox and look how the color is and the dingy and well, if you're a DC fan or comic fan, the Gotham look when Fox shows their TV shows, anything Fox puts on TV, and then flip over to ABC's, NBC, CBS, whatever other game is, and then look how it's like Metropolis. It's a little brighter, hey, let's liven this up a little bit. I don't know what it is between it, but Fox has always turned me off. And like I said, I watch all the Big Ten games that I can, when work doesn't get in the way. And that's my only thing with Fox is it's whatever filter they use on their cameras, let's get rid of it.
Yeah. I just can't wait. I can't wait for all this stuff. And we're kind of focusing on football, but the other side of that is the basketball as well. And the only reason they're talking about football is because it's close to football season with all these contracts and stuff. But honestly, it's huge. The amount of revenue that all of their sports brings in for all of these networks. I honestly don't see, unless the Pac-12 can bring in some other schools to help them along and stay there, it could be a whole brand new list of Pac-12 schools. Washington State, Washington, Utah. So USC and UCLA are already for sure leaving.
Yeah, they're gone. Yep,
they were the first ones for sure to go. Yep. Now it's Colorado. So that leaves you Arizona State and Arizona. Arizona is being talked about a lot with Big 12. They're probably going to go. But again, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Cal. Oregon would be a huge draw in my mind, I would think, for anybody because the amount of money Nike throws at them. Oregon State, I don't know. They're probably looking.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody leaves and they can bring in new people, or do they hope they can go to a different conference?
And, you have a big rivalry right there. Oregon State, Oklahoma State. Obviously, Oklahoma left, so, you have to work on maybe scheduling a home and away type thing. Or do you do one of those?
But they don't care. Oklahoma and Nebraska was a big rivalry.
Right.
We're like, we're leaving. We don't care.
Yeah. I'm talking about interstate. The fans inside there. So to me, you almost have to sign, hey, we're leaving, but let's work out a 6-year home and away thing so we play each other at least the next 6 years for the fans.
No.
And then it'll fade out.
No. The schools don't want that because they would lose out on money. I understand what you're saying. But the only reason these schools leave and go to a different conference is for money.
Right, but you still got to get rivalry. Fans watch the rivalry, right?
Okay. So what I'm saying is think about what happened to Oklahoma and Nebraska. You would have loved for us to still play, right? In your mind, you're thinking, okay, they're gonna still schedule us sometimes. We played once in over a decade.
Fact.
So I agree with what you're saying. From the outlook of the president or whoever's holding the pen for the budget, yeah, we'll find a new rivalry. Look at all the money I got from this new deal.
Right, but I'm not talking Oklahoma, Nebraska, Michigan, Ohio State. I'm talking interstate, K-State, Kansas.
Yeah.
Those are bigger because all the fans are right there.
Are they? Are they bigger?
They have more upsets. Look how many times Oregon State has foiled Oregon, and Oklahoma State has ran Oklahoma and be like, oh my goodness. It's that interstate. These kids played against each other in high school. They played against each other in all the little fancy leagues. And then here we are in college.
I can't discount the rivalry. I can't discount any of that. What I'm saying is once they move to another league, all that goes out the window.
Well, yeah, it almost has to because the league says, oh, yeah, you only have this many games.
Yeah.
And you got to have a couple cupcakes on there, to get practices in. But yeah, it'll just be too bad that you don't get to Oregon State. I think those are great rivalries. Oh, same with Oklahoma State. K-State, Kansas, not so much. But your Oklahoma State, Oregon State, always for really good games.
K-State, Kansas in basketball, huge rivalry.
Oh,
yeah. So, and again, once this happens, fast forward 10 years down the road, someone else is going to leave. Someone else is going to go over here. Oh, they have more money. Oh, they have a little bit more money.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is, out of all this, I have read that the Big Ten is giving the best money to the schools.
Right.
And SEC is right below it. So I'm really surprised that some of those schools chose the SEC over the Big Ten just for money factors. But also, thinking about that, the Big Ten is one of the only schools that I can think of that has its own network. So was the SEC the only one willing to go, oh, yeah, bring your network along? We get that.
They might be more of the, hey, if you have your side channel, we're not going to oppose that. That's yours. You can keep it. You'll just have to do X games on this channel, and then you can do yours on yours. Yeah. It's a lot of those handshake deals and behind. I like that the Big Ten is like, no, you're all in this way. There's no side handshakes. We all got to be shared. And to me, that's the way it's going to be, because that's why Florida State's leaving ACC. And that's why Nebraska left the Big 12, right? It's not fair.
It was over
equity,
money.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and Big Ten, he's like, Osborne's like, hey, the Big Ten does it equal across the board. If you're the worst team in the league or the best, it's not geared towards, keep the better. So I think it's great. The Big Ten's doing it the right way, and hopefully we get some good teams. And I'm not going to be surprised. I know you said they didn't want to go out west, but I could totally see Oregon and Washington jumping on board with the Big Ten. And now you have the south of the West Coast and you have the north of the West Coast for recruiting more.
I would really like to see what the numbers are from the streaming deal, if it gets put in place for sure, because the last deal the Pac-12 had with networks, they paid the schools about $2.5 million per school.
Oh, good grief.
Which is super low,
yeah,
right?
It is. That's, to be in perspective, the Big Ten schools are getting 80. So, yeah, that's like next to nothing. And no wonder why those schools are in the red over there.
Yeah. It's crazy. So that was our little take on, I shouldn't say little take. That was a lot of chat about a lot of money. And again, conference realignments that will never stop.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, especially coming up in the next few months, like I said, with the Pac-12's TV deal running out, they haven't got one cemented yet, so no one knows what they're getting. That will be a lot of talk on the shows, a lot of, noise going on, especially in the Big Ten, trying to grab at least 2 more teams. I think they grab 2 more teams before this season even starts here in a few weeks. That's just me. Like I said, the teams that they want to get out right now is the time, because they won't have to pay back. And I guess it's one of those, do they sit and wait, or do they grab the biggest deal in front of them and go after the $80 million? Because right now it'd be like Nebraska. If they come, they don't get 80 right away. They get it's going to be prorated.
Right. It's kind of a step up.
Yep. So, but again, they know what it's coming. They know it's going to be equal share across the board. It's huge for them. So there'll be a lot of talk. So that's what the main thing is. Reason why is their contracts coming up, and they don't know what they're going to get. They don't know how it's going to be divvied out. So some teams might take their future in their own hands or whatever and jump ship.
I don't blame them. Well, and again, we'll stay tuned to all your headlines and whatnot to see exactly what happens with the deals.
On a whole different note, another reason why you jump the Big Pac-12, they don't get any love in the polls. When it comes down to the playoff time and teams in, how many times that an Oregon team or one of them was left out that you're like, oh, dude, you guys, man, your resume wasn't good enough. So they were left out. So if I'm one of those teams, the Oregons, USCs, obviously UCLA, they're already coming over, but the Pac-12, for whatever reason, and they're on late at night, so like, people don't get to see them or evaluate them. There's been a couple good Washington teams that were left out. So, yeah, if I'm that might be a whole nother thing to put on the thing is, dude, we'll get more love in the Big Ten, more voting in the Big Ten or Big 12 than what we're getting in this Pac-12. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's the way the writers go, and
it's crazy. And again, it's kind of a beauty pageant, whatever that particular sports writer or whoever is giving the vote that day. And they crown their prince of football, so to speak. Yeah. And it's a weird little deal on how you get that. And I'm agreeing with you. Oregon didn't get the love. I think they were almost undefeated that year, or
Right.
maybe had one win, one loss. BYU that one year went undefeated, and they didn't even get looked at. So I agree.
UCF,
Yeah.
So, yep. It'll be interesting. Yeah, like I said, when it comes up, maybe that's another factor that weighs in on it is, Pac-12 is nice, been good, but we don't get the respect we deserve. We need to go to a bigger conference or another conference that does it. It still won't change the time zone. And I mean, I know we're dragging this out. You were ready to move on.
No, it's all good.
But if the UCLA, USC games, we're going to go out there, those 3:00 games are, going to be 1:00, right? But there's going to be early for them. So those fans are like, can we get a 6:00? Well, no, because then it's 8:00 over here and none of us want to stay up and we're going to watch the games. Is it the television rights going to be like, hey, so.
All right, exactly. So when USC or UCLA comes to Nebraska and they play at 11 here, that's 9:00 there.
Yeah, they didn't even get a pregame yet.
Right.
Or they said, screw it, let's not go to bed. We'll just stay up and.
But that has been the landscape of college football for the West Coast forever.
Forever.
So College Game Day or whatever broadcast network you listen to for your pregame hype up show, whether it's Big Ten Network, whether it's ESPN, no matter what, it's starting at 9 or even before then. So time zone, throw it out the window. It's all about the money.
Yeah.
And speaking about money, go ahead.
Yeah. So when the ESPN crew do their game days at places and they're on that West Coast because it's an Oregon State or UCLA, UCLA, whatever, they're there at 7 a.m. getting up to talk to us at 9.
Yeah.
The crowd's a little good, but by the time their 9:00 rolls around, 2 hours, then you see the crowd's a bit bigger. But you can tell they're like, man, this is so early. It's 7 a.m., but for you guys, it's 9 or 10 on the East Coast. So, yeah, those College Game Days, they're the same way. They're like, oh, my goodness, 3 cups this morning, please, 3 cups.
Yeah, a lot of caffeine.
Right.
Speaking of money, you wanted to mention some of the people in the NFL that haven't been signed yet, a few running backs and whatnot.
Yeah, so I want to say it was end of last week. Dalvin Cook made his visit to the Jets. And of course, all the talking heads were like, he doesn't leave New York without a deal. I guarantee they already have it ready to go, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? He came and went, and he's still not a Jet. I have no idea where Dalvin Cook goes. The Jets would not be on my list to go, but that's just me. I think a Cincinnati team, Buffalo Bills. I still think if the Bills got a Dalvin Cook with Josh Allen and that offense, puts them up there. I'm not saying they wouldn't do that for the Jets. Don't get me wrong. I just think the Jets already have the young pieces in place that why take on that? I know that was a big talk, right? Aaron Rodgers took $35 million pay cut, right? Well, why didn't you do that in Green Bay? I don't know. Ask him. But he did. So he freed up money to sign somebody like this if they needed. I just don't think Dalvin Cook's the answer for the Jets. That wasn't their issue last year.
Okay, so you mentioned freeing up money. Who are the Bengals trying to go after because they just reworked Joe Mixon's deal?
Yeah. Well, I think it was one of those we're going to let you go type deals because I'm very down on Joe Mixon. My son's a huge Cincinnati fan. And first couple of years Mixon was a beast coming out of Oklahoma, right? Last couple of seasons, even last year in the playoffs, I was like, dude, you just need a couple of yards, man. And it's almost like watching Zeke run, and he's not even on the caliber of Zeke, right? So I think it was more of, dude, your stats have slid, pretty much like Zeke down every year. And yeah, we're going to redo it, or we can just go without you. And he wanted the job, I guess.
So he had over 1,200 yards from scrimmage last year in 14 games. But
total yards.
Total.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that's why I said yards from scrimmage.
Right.
Total yards. But again, that's a lot of offense. That's a lot of offensive work. But you're right. It's not the same numbers he put up in his Pro Bowl season. And that was in 14 games. That he didn't play in all games. But okay, so they're restructuring it. You think we're gonna think about moving on from you, or you take this deal?
Yeah, totally.
Or who else can we look at to bring in to divvy up the yards to take less pressure off you because you're breaking your body down, buddy?
Yeah. And you just got to be productive. I mean, he had a lot of receiving yards. I don't think he had. I'm pretty sure he didn't have 1,000 yards receiving. I'm sorry, rushing, Mixon. And I mean, you could say, oh well, Burrow throws the ball a lot. No, Mixon had a lot of carries, but I think a Dalvin Cook helps that team out a lot. But also, it's the same note. Like I said, Buffalo Bills, huge. So yeah, it's weird that Cook this late.
He had 814 yards rushing.
Yes,
3.9 yard average, 7 touchdowns.
Okay.
And 0 fumbles. Now, again, I love bringing up how many fumbles the guy had.
Right.
0.
But the 3.9, you're not even a 4-yard average. To me, if you want a running back to say, hey, I'm valuable to this team, all of them got to be that 4.2, 4.3 or above average for a team to go, you know what, this is getting it done. Because we don't run the ball that much, right? So you don't want it to be 2nd and 7. It's 2nd and 6. All right, let's shoot for 2nd and 6 after every running play, which, they almost run on first down every time anyway. Not anymore, but we used to. You got to have a 4-yard average. I'm sorry. In a season to be a successful season. So, yeah, I think Mixon might be on his way out. Ronald Jones for the Cowboys might be on his way out. He got a PD. And it's kind of bad luck for him. Apparently, he has like a heart thing. And it was a no medication. He thought he was on the list and it was okayed. Whatever reason, he said it is what it is. He's going to be suspended 2 games. Dallas's running back room is stacked. So he might be, what I'm getting at is not trying to slip in the Cowboys, of course, but he might have an option there to go to Cincinnati also. But yeah, with Dalvin Cook and even the Raiders running back that he didn't get his deal either. Jacobs, leading rusher, by the way, NFL leading rusher, didn't get his deal. So we'll have to see what they do with him this year. Then we go to 2 players that have demanded a rework with Zach Martin and Colts running back something Taylor. Yeah. Anyway, they both they got 1 year left, or actually Martin has a couple years left on his, and they want to be paid more. My problem with Zach Martin for the Cowboys, and obviously you guys know I'm a huge Cowboys fan, Zach Martin, the best offensive lineman they have. When he signed his deal, he wanted long-term. He got a 6-year deal. He was the highest paid. Well, now as the years go by, obviously the market changes, and now he wants more. Jerry Jones and Irsay have both come out and said, we're not reworking either one of these deals. Then the running back, Taylor, said, I want to be traded. And Irsay said, we're not trading you either. So you can sit out and not get paid. And Jerry Jones says, Zach Martin will be here. There's penalties when you don't show up, and we'll see how it goes. Let's flash back to 93, I want to say, or 94. Might have been, okay, I'm not, it's early 90s when the Cowboys won their 2nd Super Bowl. Emmitt Smith held out, wanted a new deal. Jerry Jones said no. Dallas lost their first 2 games of the season. Guess who got a new deal? Emmitt Smith. Does that happen here? Does Zach Martin sit out first 2 games? He rolls the dice and sees what happens? We'll see. I hope not, but we'll have to wait and see. My only thing is players need to figure out what they want. I want long-term deals so that I have job security. Okay, great. But then when the market changes, don't come at me in 3 years and want to renegotiate your contract because you're not the highest paid anymore. Take your deal, you signed it, live with it. On the flip side, if you want to change with the market, sign the 2-3-year deal and change with the market if you're going to stay good.
So the Colts running back is on his rookie deal. Mm-hmm. And rookie deals are always smaller.
Yep.
So
Jonathan
Taylor, right. Jonathan Taylor is a little frustrated because they're not asking him to extend this contract, and it's the rookie deal. It's always the lower money. Management's pushing back on, well, you're injured a lot, man.
True.
But if you look at his production, 1,100 yards his rookie season, 1,800 yards 21 season. So 1,800 rushing yards in 21, and they're not willing to do anything.
Right, but look at his last season, his backup, I forget his backup, had a great season because he went out and got hurt, and his backup did extremely well, kind of like the Zeke and Pollard thing, So they're like, do we not get in that Zeke thing where we give him too much money and he's hurt or doesn't play as well.
Yeah, 2022, he played in 11 games, had 861 yards. And you'd mentioned the average. His average in those 11 games, 4.5 yards a carry.
Yep.
And he still ran for 860 yards, caught 143 yards in passes.
Yep.
In every year. So every year he's been in the league, 5-yard average. Second year, 5.5-yard average. And even the year he was hurt, 4.5-yard average.
Yep. Yeah, and the big thing is the durability, right? And that's the big thing with the running backs, and they're arguing about why aren't we getting the big money, is the wear and tear. But I think Jonathan Taylor's a great running back, and if I'm his agent, I'm like, dude, go ahead, ball it out, and we will leave these guys. Somebody's going to give us money, and we'll go play for them, and we don't have to be a cult, but we don't get big money if you sit out. You know what I'm saying?
And then for me, that one column in the stats,
the fumbles.
3 lost fumbles. 3 fumbles, 3 lost.
And 14 games,
in
right?
In 11 games.
11. Okay, yeah. So that's not good at all. So, yeah, to me, especially in the rookie deals, when you're that young, you're going to get one more contract, especially as good as he is. To me, I'm like, you know what? Fine. Ball out, but don't offer me. You know, if you're going to have to pay more than another team to pay me if you want to keep me, because you know, you don't want to stay loyal. I'm not going to stay loyal.
Let's go all the way back when Peyton Manning was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Peyton Manning left because he wanted to continue win, and the management at that time really wasn't willing to rebuild around him because they didn't want to pay an aging quarterback.
Well, worried about his neck. They weren't quite sure.
Well, he
how
sat
long
out that
he
whole
play.
year. He sat out that whole year. Right. And they were worried about what was going to happen.
Yep.
So again, it's all about fitting in with the management, and the players fitting in with management, and management fitting in with the players, and how it all works out.
Yep.
So it wouldn't shock me that Jonathan Taylor refuses to do any deal with them at all and wants a new team.
Yeah.
And if he can find some system that values him, I think that it could definitely happen.
I don't recommend sitting out the season, though. I think he should get to camp.
I don't think he's sitting out. He's already in camp.
Oh, I thought he was holding out. I thought he said he was.
No.
Oh.
They tagged him with the player unable to perform, saying that he had back issues. So now that is the Colts' way of not having to pay him.
Yeah, because I'm saying he's not practicing.
So they're doing some dirty pool.
Yeah,
I'm sure to each other.
Yeah.
Some interesting things are going, but no, he as of late as Saturday evening, he was with the team practicing.
Right. So, but that's my thing is, you know, tell her, say, fine, you know, I won't ask for a trade. Go in, ball out, have another MVP season or Pro Bowl season, whichever one you can get in there, 15, 1,600-yard game, and then leave them. You know, when we're going to offer you this contract. No, I'm good.
He's already requested a trade.
He did.
And they said no.
Yeah.
So I think they're already entering into that area of, well, boy, things are bad. Things are not going to get any better.
Yep. Yeah, so like Zach Martin, he hasn't demanded a trade or nothing. He's just wants more money. He's sitting out, did not go to camp. He's did not make the flight. And as of yesterday, I was reading, he is not there yet. And again, Jerry Jones is on record as saying there is no talks. They asked, how talks going with Zach Martin on a new deal. He said, there is none. There won't be. He's under contract. There's rules in place for him to be here. And if not, there's penalties. So, we'll see when he shows up.
I don't blame the guy wanting for more money. The amount of time that he spent in the trenches, making sure everything's done right, being one of the best linemen out there, give him the money. So it's a weird little deal. Who gets paid? Who doesn't get paid? And why all of a sudden they want to renegotiate in the middle.
Yeah, that drives me nuts. I don't like it because when you're sucking like Ezekiel Elliott, can Jerry Jones call him upstairs like, dude, your average has dropped below middle average of the NFL. We're going ahead and give you a pay cut. No, that never goes over, right? Or, hey, Dak, we gave you all this money and you just threw the most interceptions. And, oh, by the way, you didn't even play 5 games. So we're going to give you a pay cut. No, it doesn't work that way. So I don't think it should work. And yes, I know the owners are greedy and they have all the money and I get it. But if you were working for a job and they say, hey, we're going to give you $90,000 a year and you ball out for 3 years and they go, hey, you know what? We're going to give you a raise to 120. Well, then you have a down year, whatever reason. You're just not into it. Do you want them to call you back up in the office and say, hey, we're going to take some of that money away? But on the flip side, if you ball out again, are you going to say, hey, I need more money because I know you just upped me to 120, but man, I am still doing great. No, you have to finish out your contract, and then let's see what happens on the other end.
So that's interesting. You put it that way. I've got a Bill Parcells quote here for you. No matter how much you've won, no matter how many games, no matter how many championships, no matter how many Super Bowls, you're not winning now, so you stink.
Yes. Fact. We're great. What you do last year, great. Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl. Amazing. Oh my gosh, this is great. And then how many seasons have we went by and Aaron Rodgers hasn't even been in, let alone win it. Hasn't got there, right? So I'm not saying the guy stinks, but I'm with you. I'm like, okay, hey, dude, that's great. But you have it. Mahomes has now more rings than you, by the way, and he's been in the league less than you. He's been in more Super Bowls than you, and he's been in the league less, So, yeah, it's, again, the average years in the NFL, 2.5 to 3 years. I don't know if anybody knows that. NFL players' average life expectancy in the NFL is less than a rookie contract.
Right.
So if you can ball out for your 1,800 yards your rookie season, but if the next 2 years you only get 1,000, you're not going to get another contract. Now, Jonathan Taylor is different. He definitely deserves another contract. I'm just talking about people in general. You can't go, you know what? Dude, I was the man last year. They're going to keep me no matter what. There's always another kid coming out of college trying to be the first Jonathan Taylor or the next Emmitt Smith, however you want to look at it, to where they want to be the greatest. So, like Nebraska, constant battle. Sorry.
No, that's all good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say let's turn the page on this, and I wanted to discuss a little boxing, since we have Terrence Bud Crawford up the road, Omaha guy.
Man, just owned it.
Yeah, on Saturday, if anybody had the chance to watch this fight or see any of the replays, it was amazing. So it was billed as two of the top at the top of their game, and this should go the distance. Both fighters could potentially knock each other out or down. We'll see what happens. One-sided. Granted,
from the get-go.
Well, granted,
here.
Right. So Bud Crawford, the first round, this is what he typically always does. He kind of plays back a little, plays possum, but what he's doing is figuring out exactly what this guy's going to do, and then he figures out how he can counter. And if you look at the tail of the tape at the very end, so Crawford landed way more punches, and it just went away. Where'd that go? Okay, so you have a guy that threw a lot. 480 punches is how many Spence threw. He landed 20% overall.
Oh, my goodness.
Bud Crawford landed 50.
50% of his punches.
60% of his power and 42% of his jabs.
Well, I wonder why he knocked him down 4 times.
So his first knockdown came in the second round, and after that, go ahead.
Yeah, almost like a stumble fall, right? A little bit of both, where it was a hit, but also it wasn't Spence off balance. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, it doesn't really count." I didn't get to see it, but that's the talk and some of the stuff I read.
So I watched a replay, and when they slow it down in real time, you think, "Oh, that wasn't that much of a punch." But when they slow it down, you see his head snap back.
Oh, okay, good.
And it is one heck of a southpaw jab.
Oh, good.
And it stunned him. And from that point on, Errol Spence wasn't the same. It was crazy.
And then 7th round twice, right?
7th round twice. And then they finally gave him the TKO in the 9th. It was an amazing fight.
Yeah, and so just a short plug, there's a icy place I go to called Snow Rush, 52nd and O. So delicious. I go there at least once a week, sometimes twice. Anyway, the owner was there at the fight. And when I went to get my icy on Tuesday, he showed me. He videoed the final, the knockout. And I'm watching it with him, and you can hear him talking. And, dude, I don't know how Spence didn't fall. 2 or 3 of those blows I'm watching, obviously he's wobbly and he can barely, and that's why they call it, because he's totally dazed. But I'm like, how is he not he can barely see what's in front of him. And somehow his legs, I mean, it should have been a knockout. Obviously, the ref calls a fight, and Spence, of course, is crying, "Hey, what are you doing?" But he was totally defenseless, and Crawford's lighting him up.
Wasn't even fighting back.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, dude, so we're sitting there talking. I was like, how does his legs, somehow he willed his legs not to let him fall? Because if anyone watches the last 30 seconds of that fight with Crawford hitting him, you thank the ref for stopping that to give Spencer maybe a chance to fight again in his career.
I was amazed at how well-conditioned Crawford is. At the end of the fight, he didn't even seem gassed. So I don't know if that was right. I don't know, 35. I don't know if that was all adrenaline, but Spence was gassed, completely fatigued. And Crawford wasn't even breathing heavy. He's like, oh, this is just a walk in the park, it seemed like. So kudos to Crawford for getting himself in that amazing shape.
Yeah, and he has solidified being the best at that weight almost ever, right? I mean, he's undefeated, knocking people out. He's been an underdog numerous times where they're like, oh, he just have it 35 years old and this and that. And yet he has defended it against anyone. Every time somebody's like, yeah, I'll fight you. Yeah, I'll fight you.
Yep, undisputed welterweight championship.
Yeah.
Got all the belts.
Huge.
That's nuts.
Yep.
We'll see who either one decides to fight next. But I wanted to talk about Crawford since local Nebraska guy.
Yeah.
Parting thoughts?
Real quick on baseball. We're obviously in August now, so now it's like the late everything we talking about wild card push and all that. I know you'd asked me who I was looking at World Series before the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Right now, the Braves look like the Dodgers. Dodgers are second, but it's not really close right now with Acuna and them doing what they're doing. Any of you guys watching, Acuna had 20-plus home runs and 50-plus steals, or right at 50 steals before August, by the way. Sometimes that's a whole season for somebody. That's amazing. But the Atlanta Braves were National League ahead above everyone. American League's a little tighter. I like what the Rangers, they just got Scherzer in the trade deadline. Huge for them. He wasn't doing great for New York, but I'm hoping the winning in the Rangers in Texas will help him out. And the one team that I don't think I would like to ask Roger if he ever saw this coming, the Baltimore Orioles. They have taken over the East. We all talked about the great start the Rays got on, had a huge lead in that division. Everybody was looking up at them. By the way, the O's have passed them. I think they're 2.5, 3 games above them right now. The O's are a great young team, lots of talent who went from, like Nebraska. If you want to look at a team, get with the O's. You have a team that lost all the time. Their attitude was, we can't win, it doesn't matter. New manager came in last year, had them playing good. This year, they're all believing they can win every game now. And look at them first. I think those are the 2 top teams for me in American League. Of course, the Astros are there. Texas Stros will battle for that down there, and we'll see who wins that West. But I really like the O's and the Rangers right now. Just a little note on the baseball. I said it's coming up in August, so we'll start having to lay all those, wild card pushes and division winners and all that. So right now it's August, so we'll be looking at Olympics. Sorry. So today in sports was a lot of Olympic stuff. So you older people, today in 1984, Mary Lou, little old Mary Lou, is when she got a perfect 10 to win her gold medal. So yeah, if you want a little blast from the past, that was 1984 on this day. Talking about Acuna stealing all those bases. In 1989, Ricky Henderson stole 50 bases in 9 of his first 11 seasons. So not just 30-30 guy here and there. 9 of his first 11 seasons, he stole at least 50 bases, which is nuts. Yeah. 1949, we became the NBA. The Basketball Association of America combined with the National Basketball League, and they made, 1949, they made what we now know as the NBA. So not a whole lot there. I said it's mostly a lot of Olympic records, running, stuff like that. Jesse Owens won his first thing out there in front of Adolf Hitler. As we know, the white supremacists that they have over there, so it's huge for Jesse Owens going over there. as a Black American and balling out, shall we say, in the Olympics.
So I have an interesting quote here from Mickey Mantle. This is just an interesting way to look at stats. During my 18 years, I came to bat almost 10,000 times. I struck out about 1,700 times and walked maybe 1,800 times. You figure a ball player will average about 500 at-bats a season. And that means I played 7 years without ever hitting the ball. Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle had an interesting way of looking at stats.
Yeah.
Blue Collar Sports Talk, I'm Daryl.
See ya.
Go watch some sports.